Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching, whether you're watching with me live or you're watching this later recorded. So I want to tell you all a little bit about the reason why I decided to kind of do this presentation for you all today that we're going to be talking about. So Dr. Witherspoon and myself, we were talking to a person who has graduated from our programs here in the past. We were talking to them relatively recently. And this individual informed, we were just kind of doing the standard, how are things going? How are your job prospects? All that sort of stuff. And this individual basically just tells us that they essentially talked themselves out of a job because of a lack of confidence in their skills, a lack of confidence in their abilities, just a general lack of confidence. And in this individual saying that, it got me to thinking, man, I really need to do a whole lot more to try to reiterate these points in the Web 287 class, because it is one of those things that's really, it's really difficult to have. Like, I know it's one of those things where it's like, oh, well, that's easy for you to say, to try to tell somebody to be confident. It's almost like trying to tell like a horse to learn how to skateboard. It's one of those things where like you kind of have it or you kind of don't, and maybe you can work on it a little bit and try to improve yourself. But before you can do that, you have to have this like intrinsic motivation, this self-understanding, this self-actualization to understand that, I'm not really the most confident person. I don't have that sort of confidence. And it is kind of shooting me in the foot when I go into these different situations like job interviews or career networking opportunities. And so what I thought I'd do today is I thought I'd talk to you a little bit about confidence and in turn opportunity. And I have some statistics here, and I think these statistics might surprise you. And so what I'd like to kind of do is I'd like to kind of go through and talk about some different stuff, and we can talk about what our next steps are in terms of maybe understanding that we are not the most competent people, that we might need some help from this. What do we do next? So, in a recent survey of roughly 2,000 hiring managers, 33% of them, so nearly 700 of them, said that they knew whether or not they would hire somebody within the first 90 seconds of meeting them. Just take a moment and kind of let that sink in. 33% of hiring managers know within 90 seconds, a minute and a half. Think about what you can do in a minute and a half. Right? Like you can maybe reheat some leftovers in the microwave. Watch the majority of a commercial break on a show. There's not a whole lot that can be done in a minute and a half, but we have 33% of these 2,000 hiring managers saying they can know whether or not they're going to hire you within the first 90 seconds, within the first 1.5 minutes. Talk about first impressions and the cruciality of first impressions. This makes it especially clear that when we're going into these job interview situations, first impressions are of the most critical importance. I mean, just think about it, right? I mean, that's essentially what you have time for here, is a first impression. And when we're examining this, this is what this percentage of hiring managers reported. So you can probably expect that there are some number of the remaining hiring managers who do the exact same thing, but didn't report it on this survey for whatever reason, maybe because they felt like they shouldn't be doing it even though they do it anyway, or maybe they're just not self-aware of the fact that they do it. I mean, if I had to guess, I would almost guess that it would be more like 50% of these hiring managers developing those first impressions within 90 seconds and then deciding whether or not they think they're a good fit. I mean, you can kind of think about that within like the perspective of your own personal lives. You know, when you meet somebody for the first time, you know, one of the first things that we do is we try to get a gauge for this individual. We try to get this assessment of this person that's standing across from us via this first impression. And we do oftentimes make judgment calls about how we feel about this person very, very quickly. Maybe within 90 seconds, maybe a little bit longer, maybe a little bit sooner. And so as we consider what we're looking at here, like it's common. It's something that's going to happen. And so what is happening in this 90 seconds that are causing these individuals to make this decision? And a lot of it revolves around how a person presents themselves, a person's confidence, a person's ability to get in and take control of a situation. So let's look at a few more statistics here from this same survey of this same 2,000 hiring managers. And let's talk about these things, right? Here's one. 20% of interviewers said that candidates who sat with their arms crossed during their meetings were not considered for the role. Just this idea of body language in general. The way that you carry yourself, the body language that you have, even though you're not saying anything at all, your body language can speak volumes. And oftentimes when we see individuals like this who are sitting with their arms crossed, they're, you know, in this kind of closed off position. They're guarded, they're uncomfortable, they're standoffish. You know, that's the impression that a hiring manager can get from this. And we have 20% of interviewers, that's 1/5 of that 2,000, right? That's roughly 400 of them. Saying that, you know, if you saw somebody sitting there with their arms folded during the interview, or during their, you know, during their meetings, during their interview meetings, they're not even going to consider them. Because of the posture that that presents, because of what that represents. And 20% is a big enough number. Well, you could probably think, well, that's 20%. You know, on the other side, there's 80%. So that means there's far more that don't do that. But 20% is a big enough number that you're going to be likely to encounter someone who has this point of view, someone who has this way of thinking that, you know, if you're going to come in and you're going to sit with your arms folded in my interview, you're going to be this kind of standoffish, this kind of unapproachable, this kind of closed off. You're not an individual that we want for this organization. 1 in 5. Right? So like if we're doing 14, 15 job applications in this class, this semester, based on that statistic, you can expect 3 of those job applications to have hiring managers that feel that way. Or actually, that's low. No, that's right. 1 in 5. Yep. A little math off the top of my head on a Thursday afternoon kind of kills the mood. But yeah, you can expect 3 of those interviewers to kind of feel that way, to have this viewpoint. So your body language speaks volumes to these individuals without you ever even having to open your mouth. What about this? This one's even higher. 65%. 65% of interviewers said that candidates who failed to make eye contact didn't get the role they were applying for. That's over half. That's almost 2/3. I mean, it's close enough to where we may as well just say 2/3. Right? So if we put that in perspective to the 2,000 people that were interviewed, we're looking at roughly, what would that be? Roughly 1,300 people almost, or thereabouts. $1,300 out of 2,000? Now imagine that in context with your job applications, with what you're doing. I mean, in just the job applications that we're making this semester, that's, 14, 15 job applications. That means that the potential of like 8 or maybe even 9 of those interviewers having this feeling where if you're not going to look them in the eye, if you're not going to project that confidence into that situation, you don't need that job. Here's another one. 40% of interviewers stated that the quality of a candidate's voice and their overall confidence was a reason for not taking their candidacy further. The quality of their voice. And in all of these statistics here, we haven't even once breached the idea of knowledge. We haven't even once breached the idea of what somebody knows or what somebody can do. This is all intangible stuff. There's no demonstration of knowledge here. There's no demonstration of ability. There's no demonstration of anything except for confidence. If you want an opportunity to get your foot in that door to open up things for you, you have to project that confidence that you can do what you claim you can do. Because that's one of the big things, right? Even if you have this great resume, if you come in and you have your head down and you're mumbling or your voice is a little trembly, you're not making eye contact, you're sitting all bunched up with your arms crossed, you're exuding to me that you don't really have the skills necessary for this job. Now, when I say skills in that sort of context, I'm not talking about technical knowledge, technical ability. But we live in an age where everybody has to deal with somebody. Everybody has to talk to somebody. Whether you're working on a team, or you're dealing with the public, or you're just trying to communicate to your manager. Everybody has to communicate. Everybody has to interact with other people, and your confidence, the ability to sell your work, sell your knowledge, sell the things that you know how to do, extends into the confidence that you would have actually doing the thing. And especially when you're put into a situation where you're working with the public, or you're working with some kind of outside client. When you're working with some kind of outside client, you are a representative of that company to that client. So when I'm hiring people for that sort of role, I'm looking for people who not only can do the job, but I'm looking for people who I think would represent my company well. And if you're nervous and you can't look me in the eye and you are sitting all crossed up and folded, if you're doing that in the interview, how am I supposed to expect that you'd interact with the client? If you're my representative to the outside world, to the clients that we have coming in to get help or get service from you, and you respond in the same way where you're all crossed up and folded up, looking down, unconfident, mumbling, what are our clients going to think about how that represents our company? I don't want a steward out there representing my company like that, because they'd be misrepresenting my company and potentially losing me money when we have clients that don't come back because they don't like the service that they received. It's difficult. It very much is. And it's something that a lot of people have to work on. You know, there's a lot of people that are just not so confident. And it is something that happens a lot in this sort of industry because we enter into tech thinking that we can just probably find a job where we can sit in the back room and just kind of work on stuff and nobody will bother us and nobody will, ask us for help or do anything where they have any kind of physical interaction with us. You know, they might send us an email and then we fix something and then we move on to the next thing. We can just kind of sit in the cave and not worry about anything. But that is so far from the truth. We have to have these interpersonal skills, and we have to have the ability to project confidence and to talk to other people and to show individuals that we would be a good representative of the company. Because really, that's what a lot of this stuff breaks down to. Is that if you lack these soft skills, not only are you going to have a hard time communicating with the other people that you need to be communicating with, but you're going to be a poor example. You're going to be a poor representative of the company to other people that you encounter. Because even if you know everything, if you're not confident in your abilities, if you're not confident in the way that you talk to other people, even if you know everything you need to know about something, others are going to assume you don't. I once was in a psychology class where they told everybody that essentially everybody that you encounter is a psychoanalyst. Because we all do it. Whenever we meet somebody, we try to get a read on them. We try to understand where they're coming from. We try to understand, this person who's maybe presenting themselves as an expert, are they really an expert? What's going on with this person? And so when we present ourselves with confidence, we can not only confidently deal with what situations that we're encountering, But we can also give those people that we're working with, we can give them confidence in us. So how do we do it? How do we build our confidence? I wish there was some easy way. I wish there was some magic wand. I wish there was something that we could do that would allow us to just be confident. Right? Because it's a stumbling block. It's a hurdle for a lot of people. It's not something that's unique. So one of the first things that we need to do is we need to start to be cognizant. We need to start to be self-aware of areas in which we're not so confident. We need to be cognizant of how we carry ourselves. We need to be cognizant of our body language. We need to be cognizant of making eye contact. And you could think, well, that's a lot of stuff to remember, especially going in to an interview. Or it's a lot of stuff to think about, and I wouldn't want to be distracted and maybe miss a question or get something wrong. But if we have these individuals and they're making these determinations before you even tell them anything, based on your confidence, based on your body language, based on your eye contact, then you've already written yourself out of the job opportunity before they get the opportunity to ask you the first question. There's another one that I hear so much from students in this class as we're writing resumes or we're doing mock interviews or we're doing something, anything, where they feel it necessary to talk about how little experience they have. Be cognizant of that. Call that out, at least to yourself, when you catch yourself doing that. Try to not do that. It's hard for a lot of us because it's a habit and it's a coping mechanism. It's a habit and it's a coping mechanism to try to be like, oh, well, I'm not the strongest in that area. We either think we're being humble or we are, trying to cope and deal with the situation. But in an interview especially, it's not time to be humble. It's time to be a salesman. You're making a sales pitch. And you're the product. And you're talking about what you can bring to the table and all of the exciting and new things that you have that you can offer. And you can think about it like that. Like if you go to a car dealership, for example, maybe you wanted to go to the car dealership for some reason, and you're thinking about buying a car. In which scenario are you going to be more likely to buy a car? One where you have some kind of salesman just kind of shuffle up to you, staring down at his feet, and just being like, "Hey, we got some, we have some all right cars. They're okay. There's some better cars that I've seen out there, but our cars are, they're comparable. They're all right." Versus a salesman coming up to you and going, "Hey, you're looking for a car? We've got some great cars here. All the newest models, all the latest features. Let's have a look at them. Let's kick the tires a little bit and figure out what you need so we can put you in the right car today." Which one's going to be more effective? Which one's going to make you more likely to purchase that car? So as we wrap up today, kind of want to give you some food for thought. Because I know this is something that people struggle with, and it might be something that you struggle with. And it is this sort of intangible thing that I wouldn't necessarily say you could learn. Like, I don't know that there's a book you could read or a lecture that you could listen to that will automatically flip some kind of light switch and make you confident, make you believe in your own abilities, give you the opportunity to sell yourself instead of talking yourself down. And so the best thing that you can do is you can practice. You can be cognizant of your own feelings. You can be cognizant of your own emotions. If you catch yourself saying these negative things about yourself, if you catch yourself trying to engage in this sort of behavior, if you're aware of it, if you're cognizant of it, that's a step in the right direction. And each time you realize it and you can practice being better, gets you one step closer to gaining that confidence. And you hear people say, fake it until you make it. And this is an instance where that's oftentimes true. Even if you're in general, in regular life, not the most confident person, you almost need to go into an interview like you're playing a part. Like you're an actor. Taking on a role. And that role is good job candidate who wants an opportunity to do this job. So if you're struggling finding that self-awareness, that intrinsic value in just yourself, that self-actualization where you're going to be more confident because you have this understanding. If you're struggling to find that, pretend. And if you pretend enough times, well, that's just practicing. And maybe something will actually kind of take hold. There's lots of stuff to think about, lots of stuff to do. And as we look at the job market, especially now, there's a large pool of job applicants. A large pool. A lot of people are looking for jobs. So what you have to do is you have to fight against all of these other people, fight figuratively. You have to have this advantage. You have to be able to illustrate to this hiring manager or this interviewer or whomever that you are the right person for this job and you alone. It's something that we've talked about in the past. Your personal experience. Your personal experience is of value. You are the only person who knows what you know, and you are the only person who has done what you have done. That combination, the combination of everything that you know and the combination of everything that you've done, that is your personal experience. And that's what you bring to any job opportunity. And that is the thing that has value because it's what makes you unique. And because you are unique, you are uniquely suited for a job. And that's great. The last thing you need to do is you need to tell somebody that you're not great. when you get into these situations, you control your own narrative. You get to tell these people what you want them to know about you, and you don't have to tell them something that you don't want them to know. Like, if you're not that great at talking to people on the phone, don't say that. You don't have to say it. If they ask you a question about whether you've had any phone support experience, especially if you have, you say yes. Yes, I've had experience giving people technical support over the phone. I did that in this job. I did that in this other job. And by and large, was very successful at doing it. Whether you like it or not, whether you feel like you're the best at it or not, irrelevant. Did you do it? Was the outcome successful? Because the moment where you feel like, oh, well, I might have been a little awkward on that call, and you express that to a hiring manager, things start to go down. Things start to go away. You're in charge of your own narrative. You're in charge of you and what you're able to show people or not. So that's where we'll leave off for this week. I hope you got something out of that. I hope there was something of value there to you. If there's anybody here hanging out with me in the live stream today, I'll put on the music for a couple minutes, hang out in the chat for a couple minutes in case you have any questions. If you're watching this later and you come up with some questions, send me an email. Let me know. We could talk about it one-on-one, or we could talk about it in a future live stream. With that being said, hey, practice your confidence this week. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.